That helps. But next up, we have Dr. Bryan Neiderman. Dr. Bryan Neiderman is a licensed clinical psychologist and the CEO and founder of PurePsych, a private practice specializing in therapeutic psychological services and neuropsychological evaluations. Dr. Bryan is certified in cognitive behavior therapy, solution-focused brief therapy, and specialized in EMDR therapy. Everybody please welcome them.
You think this one's better?
Just go ahead.
First off, I just wanted to say how this is such a special thing to be a part of and to be invited to do and to be able to speak. So I'll just go out there and say, if anyone has ever wondered what EMDR actually means, what it stands for, what on earth is it, you might want to move closer, because I don't know how loud I can speak or how loud this is going to get to the back rows. If anyone's really interested, you might want to move a little bit forward. If not, you can always come and check out the booth later and we can have a conversation then. Today I'm talking about EMDR for children and adolescents specifically. EMDR is a complex therapeutic modality. Certainly can't be explained in 15 minutes, but I will do my best to convey the most important aspects of EMDR to provide you with at least a basic understanding. What this will include is, what is EMDR? The Adaptive Information Processing Model, which is also known as AIP, which is the theory behind EMDR. And also, what is trauma and why is it important to understand? I'll then move to discuss why EMDR is beneficial for children and adolescents, regardless of whether they have experienced significant, what is known as big T traumas, or adverse life events that everyone experiences on a regular basis, which are known as little T traumas. So EMDR is an acronym for Eye Movement Desensitization and Reprocessing. It was founded by Francine Shapiro in 1987. It's a therapeutic modality that involves much more than just thinking about one's thinking or talking about one's feelings and experiences. EMDR therapy affects the neurobiological processes through which information is processed and stored in memory. EMDR is best known and was initially named for the eye movements that are part of therapeutic procedures. Simulating what occurs during the REM stage of sleep cycle, that's rapid eye movement, the eyes move back and forth rapidly following a stimulus to elicit a client's saccadic or tracking eye movements and activate the brain's information processing system. In my professional work, I either use a light bar during in-person sessions or a remote EMDR platform for virtual sessions. Other practitioners may use their fingers and ask you to follow. There are, however, other stimuli besides directed eye movements that can activate the brain's information processing center. For example, tactile approaches, whether it's tapping or hand pulsators, and tones. Those elements have also been proven to be clinically effective. The most important element, though, is bilateral stimulation, as bilateral stimulation is the key to activating the brain's information processing system, and that provides the clinical focus for treatment. I'm probably sure I'll say that like 20 times over the speech. So EMDR is based on a theoretical model known as AIP, the Adaptive Information Processing. According to this model, activating the brain's information processing system aids in the resolution of psychological pathologies as connections to appropriate associations are made, and then the experience is integrated into a positive emotional and cognitive schema. According to Shapiro, essentially what is useful is learned and stored with the appropriate affect and is available for future use. This is an extremely valuable insight and one that makes so much sense. Shapiro provides an excellent example. Let's say that something negative happens to us, such as a humiliation at school, and we're disturbed by it. What happens? Well, we think about it, we dream about it, and we talk about it. After a while, we're no longer bothered by it, and the experience may be used appropriately as information that guides our future actions. Thus, we learn something about ourselves and about other people. We better understand past situations, and we're better able to handle similar situations in the future. Inherent in the AIP model is the concept of psychological self-healing. This is a construct based on the body's healing response to physical injury. For instance, if you cut your hand, your body works to close and heal the wound. If something blocks the healing, such as a foreign object or repeated trauma, the wound will fester, cause pain, and delay the healing process. If the block is removed, healing will resume. The scripted explanation of EMDR therapy and the AIP model is as follows. When a disturbing event occurs, it gets locked in the brain with the original pictures, sounds, thoughts, feelings, and body sensations. EMDR procedures seem to stimulate the information and allow the brain to reprocess the experience. That may be what is happening in REM sleep or dream sleep. The eye movements, the tones, and the tactile stimulation help to reprocess memories and other associated experiences that are tied to those memories. It is your own brain that is doing the healing, and so therefore you're the one that's in control. For children, we kind of alter the script a little bit and we say, when something bad happens, it can get stuck in your brain with a picture, sounds, your thoughts, your feelings, and how your body feels. This EMDR thing helps your brain to feel better about what happened. We think about it like in dream sleep, because sometimes your dream can help out with stress. The eye movements, the sounds, the tapping, the hand buzzers, it helps with the stress over the bad thing that happened and the other things that might be connected to it. And again, it's your own brain doing the healing, so you're the one that's in control. A similar sequence of events seems to occur with other mental processes. That is, the natural tendency of the brain's information processing system is to move towards a state of mental health and psychological healing. However, if this system, similar to the physical system, is blocked or becomes imbalanced by the impact of trauma, big or small, maladaptive responses are then observed. These responses may be triggered by a present stimuli, or perhaps by the attempt of the information processing mechanism to actually resolve distressing material stored in the brain following an event or an experience. This system is adaptive when it's activated, and that's what we do in EMDR. We help to activate that system. So, the AIP model suggests that the moment of insight and actual integration comes when the two neural networks link up with each other. When the system is activated and maintained in a dynamic form, the appropriate connections between the two networks can be made. It is posited that this adaptively resolved memory is then restored or newly stored in its altered form through the process of memory reconsolidation, which leads to the memory emerging spontaneously in a more positive form and is integrated with appropriate affect and more positive self-attribution. This is very important to understand because many negative self-attributions that people have about themselves are developed during the time of trauma, when the brain is overwhelmed by physical sensations, emotional affect, or distressing imagery. The role of beliefs in EMDR include beliefs are verbalizations of stored affect, emotions, and sensations. People make conclusions about the self based on the feelings of the experience. It's not just about the language. One method to identify memory networks, among others. At these times of trauma, due to the brain being overwhelmed, the brain auto-generates an attribution for the self, and that really feels true on a gut level as it relates to the experience. For example, let's take a look at the experience of embarrassment, something that most humans have experienced at one point or another. From the bottom up, EMDR operates according to a bottom-up model as opposed to a top-down model, which means that we're considering the feelings and the body sensations first, later on the thinking. So, first, the body physiologically responds. Then, an emotional experience occurs. Lastly, the thinking part of the brain applies language and a story in an attempt to make sense of what is happening and what the person is experiencing. Embarrassment, then, is first experienced in the body. It's a shrinking, sinking feeling. Maybe we get flushed in the face. And that's followed by emotional content, followed by the verbal label that we apply to the emotion. We call it embarrassed. And then a story is applied to the experience of being embarrassed, and some self-attribution in the form of a belief, probably a negative belief. Embarrassment doesn't feel good. If the brain processes this experience in an adaptive way, it is stored in an adaptive network. If the brain processes this experience in a maladaptive way, it is stored in its own separate neural network, which forms the basis for future self-consciousness, fear of future embarrassments, and these things can lead to basic avoidance as a go-to strategy in order to decrease the chances of additional embarrassment. Many of these negative beliefs are irrational, they're untrue, they're generalizable to other situations. For example, I'm not good enough. Maybe I'm not good enough at one thing, but it doesn't mean that I'm not good enough at anything else that I may do in my life. But sometimes those experiences may get stuck. A few thematic examples: responsibility and defectiveness. I'm not good enough, I don't matter, I'm unlovable. I'm sure that many of us have felt this way at some point in our life. Responsibility action. It's my fault. I should have known better. I shouldn't have done that. I should have done something. I can't do anything right. Again, I'm sure that we all have felt this way before. Many criticisms from others yield this type of negative self-belief. Safety and vulnerability is another theme. I'm not safe. I'm in danger. I'm going to die. Something bad is going to happen. These negative cognitions are the basis for many challenges related to the regulation of anxiety experiences, as safety and survival are the most archaic functions of the human brain. Power, control, and choice. I'm not in control. I can't handle it. I'm powerless. I'm helpless. Who doesn't like to be in control? How many life experiences do we endure where we feel like we cannot handle what is happening to us? Belongingness and connectedness, probably a pretty crucial element for most children and adolescents. I don't fit in. I don't belong. I can't connect. No one likes me. I'm left out. No one wants me. Something that plagues many of our children in their social world. Just think of social media alone and the impact it has had on demonstrating how important it is for people to be connected to others and to feel appreciated and liked in some fashion. All right. I'm going to breeze ahead a little bit because I guess I only have 5 minutes. So by dictionary definition, any event that has had a lasting negative effect on the self or psyche is by its nature traumatic. Trauma can also be considered to be a psychological consequence of a sudden external event that is a high risk to our physical integrity, or a series of episodes with traumatic relationships repeated over time, subjectively perceived as dangerous and full of discomfort. The difference there is that the latter, the adverse experiences, are little t traumas. They may generate a sense of helplessness in a child, overwhelm their coping skills, resulting in the deterioration of their emotional and cognitive functioning. Trauma is associated with numerous changes in the nervous system. Due to the imbalance that happens, the information processing system is unable to function optimally, and the information acquired at the time of an event, including images, sounds, affect, physical sensations, is stored in its disturbing state. A simple way to understand this is that during these times, effective and adaptive information processing is unavailable because the brain is overwhelmed. Due to a lack of adaptive information processing, the information is stored maladaptively in an unhealthy way. It's stored in its distressing, excitatory, state-specific form, and that original material can be triggered by a variety of internal and external stimuli, and may be expressed in the form of nightmares, flashbacks, intrusive thoughts, and undesirable emotional reactions. In effect, the information is frozen in time, it's isolated in its own neural network, it's stored in its originally disturbing state-specific form. And because of the intensity of the affect at the time of an experience or an event, it's effectively locked the memory into its own restricted associative network, and that's where it is isolated. No new learning can take place because subsequent therapeutic information cannot link associatively with it because it's not tied to the adaptive network. Therefore, when the individual is triggered by thought, image, emotional feeling, body sensation, they're still connected to the negative self-attributions of the original event or experience. The disparity between this and the dysfunctionally stored information that impels a client into the office and says, I shouldn't be this way. It makes sense. So memories are considered to be the basis for most psychological disorders, and the effects of EMDR therapy are viewed as rapidly changing the impact of these memories, including the imagery, beliefs, emotions, and body sensations that are stored at the time of the event or experience. Consideration for the past, the present, and the future forms the basis for why things trigger unwanted or undesirable thoughts, feelings, or reactions. EMDR approaches consider, where did this start? What triggers are going to make it happen again? And we then develop future templates for being able to respond appropriately in the future. Although I know this is a brief explanation, I want to just turn my discussion quickly. I know I have a couple minutes. EMDR is certainly one of the most less frequently employed therapeutic modalities when it comes to psychological intervention for kids. More commonly known for its efficacy in treating PTSD and complex PTSD involving major traumas, it is extremely effective in treating the little t or small t traumas that build up cumulatively in the child and adolescent population, and I guess for all of us as well. So, various studies have supported that the general adverse life events can actually have more symptomology related to it than major trauma. Life events include problems in relationships, problems in work, problems at school. Following exposure to the traumatic or adverse events, children may develop some stress, some other psychological issues, some mental health or emotional health issues related to these things. Depression, generalized anxiety disorder, childhood traumatic grief, separation anxiety, substance abuse, social withdrawal, self-harming tendencies, excessive complacency or need for gratification, acting out in aggressive and oppositional ways, and other non-adaptive behaviors. An indication of this is that the memory of the event still elicits similar negative self-attributions, affect, and physical sensations as experienced on the day the memory was created. The target then, what we do in our therapeutic work in EMDR, is we try to access this disturbing memory as it currently is stored, because dysfunctional information has set the groundwork for the present pathology. Adverse childhood experiences, household dysfunction, peer problems, humiliations, criticisms, failures, all things probably all of us have experienced at some point in time. They cause the unprocessed memories of these events, and how they are stored, it's stored with how people experience it at that time. So, EMDR aims to reduce the level of subjective stress and strengthen adaptive cognitions related to a traumatic event, but unlike therapies focused on trauma, EMDR does not require people make detailed descriptions of the events. They don't have to have a direct discussion of their beliefs, how they feel about themselves, carrying out any kind of prolonged exposure work to get better in coping with certain things. And there's no tasks at home, which all children love. No work at home. You don't have to do any homework for therapy. There are also great advantages for EMDR for kids, and it's really about development of coping strategies and toolkits that parents are continuously asking me for. My kids need coping skills. Well, EMDR is a phenomenal methodology for the development of installation of resources required for life functioning. Another incredible facet of EMDR, and I'll close off on this one, is its capacity for future templating. What's a future template? It's an approach at effectively preparing for, dealing with, managing, resolving, or tolerating upcoming experiences. Like a computer system that is coded for certain functions or tasks, the brain only has information on what it's been given, how it's been programmed. When future templating, the client creates its own movie for how they want an upcoming situation to play out or how they want to handle a triggering event in the future. We use bilateral stimulation in order to aid in the installation of this new programming. Future templates provide the brain with new information, so the individual has that information already there to move forward. Although I'd love to open the floor for Q&As, just come meet me at the booth. I know the time here is limited. I would like to encourage anyone who has questions or wants additional information to come speak with me. I'm over there at the white tent. Marta's waving. We got purple, white balloons. And I'm happy to talk more about EMDR and its benefits for kids. Thank you very much for having me. It's an honor to be here. And I just want to say one more time, I appreciate Shiv's family for putting something together that's so absolutely necessary, and that's to raise awareness for emotional wellness and health in our child and adolescent population. Thank you so much for having me. It's been a pleasure.